Suddenly, the Sacramento Kings have emerged as the favorite to land DeMar DeRozan, according to Woj, and it just might be the best move that the Kings can make this summer. It's even got me changing my tune a little bit about the Kings going after Kyle Kuzma. I'll explain right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And first and foremost, happy 4th of July, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful Independence Day. Hopefully you enjoyed safely the festivities and the heat and the barbecue and the fireworks. And we woke up today with a little bit of fireworks. No move still being made for the Sacramento Kings. Add today's news to the list of Kings rumors and conversations that have been happening over the past couple of weeks that the Kings are a front runner to land this person. They're involved in conversations to land this person. They're trying to go after this person. Now, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, the Sacramento Kings are the front runner to land DeMar DeRozan in what would more than likely have to be a sign and trade with the Chicago Bulls and a third team. We're going to get into all these latest rumors about the Sacramento Kings, but apparently Woj says keep an eye on the next 24 to 48 hours and the Kings potentially getting a deal done for DeMar DeRozan during that time. What is delaying things if the Kings and Bulls are truly locked in some pretty serious conversations involving a DeMar DeRozan sign and trade? Well, the delay is maybe a similar delay to the Brandon Ingram negotiations, which is the involvement of a third team in this deal. In the Ingram sweepstakes, it was get a third team involved because the New Orleans Pelicans are looking for a center. They're looking for some big man help, and the Sacramento Kings did not have a big to move in that trade, or at least a big that the Pelicans would be looking for in a Brandon Ingram trade. This deal is likely to require a third team because, according to Woj, the Bulls do not want to take back any significant salary. Now, if the Kings want to sign DeMar DeRozan, he's seeking over $20 million a year, likely in the mid-20s range, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 million, around that range per year. The Kings only have a little bit under $15 million until they pass the first apron. They cannot take on salary in a sign and trade that would put them over that first apron. So they have to stay under that. So they need to free up enough money for them to bring in the mid-20s, let's say $24, $25 million that DeMar DeRozan would want. Hopefully it could be lower than that. Maybe it could be 22, 23, but let's say 25. The Kings would need to free up enough money for the Kings to be able to take in that $25 million without going over the apron. So immediately our attention turns to the two guys that the Sacramento Kings have been shopping all offseason and really since the trade deadline. Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes. Kevin Huerter makes $16 million per year over the next 2 years. Harrison Barnes makes $18 million per year over the next 2 years. In my opinion, it would be easiest and best for the Sacramento Kings to move Kevin Huerter and his $16 million. Now, that's $2 million per year less than you free up, but it's easier to move $16 million, number one. And number two is there have been reports of Kevin Huerter having interest from teams around the league. At one point in time, the Chicago Bulls were that team with interest. So the suggestion of there needing to be a third team involved you can draw two conclusions from that. Number one is that the Kings are trying to move Barnes instead of Huerter, which in my opinion doesn't really make sense. Or two, that the Chicago Bulls are no longer interested in Huerter, or do not want to take on Huerter's money in this deal when they still have to worry about paying Zach LaVine. That makes a lot of sense. So getting a third team involved complicates things, of course, because you're looking for a team who's going to be willing to take in the bulk of Huerter's $16 million a year salary, who in that trade is willing to move somebody to Chicago who's either on an expiring deal or a low money short-term deal or a combination of the two. Maybe you can find somebody who's only paid $4, $5, $6 million for one more year and whoever that may be that the Bulls are willing to take on in that deal that probably could help Chicago. And then in terms of assets that the Bulls should expect from Sacramento in the sign and trade portion between these two teams, because ultimately this trade is about getting DeRozan to Sacramento and giving the Bulls some kind of compensation for losing DeRozan. It's very similar to the Klay Thompson deal that just went down, right? Now, what did the Golden State Warriors ultimately get in that deal? They got a couple second-round picks. So in this situation, the Kings do not need to send out a bunch of assets in this deal. Kevin Huerter is likely the biggest asset and the only real asset that the Kings would send out in this deal. I think the Kings could get away with sending a pair of second rounders. Maybe both of them go to Chicago. Maybe one goes to Chicago and one goes to the third team to be willing to take on the bulk of Kevin Huerter's money. Then again, though, it's not like you're just absorbing a bad player into your cap. Kevin Huerter has a lot of value as a sharpshooter in this league. Kevin Huerter, whether it's as a starter or coming off the bench, can help any team in this league. So the Kings are ultimately trying to find a team that has the money and the interest in Kevin, which I'm sure there are teams out there, but naturally that adds a delay of things. And the Kings are probably looking to sign DeMar DeRozan. Well, here, like in order for a sign and trade to happen, I'm processing this in my brain as I'm talking about it. A sign and trade has to be a minimum of 3 years. Like you can't do a 2-year or 1-year sign and trade. So the Kings would have to sign DeMar DeRozan essentially, or get DeMar DeRozan to agree to a 3 to 4 year deal, likely starting in the low to mid 20s and ending in the mid to high 20s, if I were to guess. So let's say the Kings negotiate a deal with DeMar DeRozan for $23 million the first year, $25 the second year, $27 the third year. That's probably in the ballpark of what we're looking at here. For Sacramento financially, I think that's worth it. And if they're able to if they're able to make that move while only giving up Kevin Huerter and a couple second-round picks, it gives them a lot of flexibility still going forward to make potentially more moves on top of that this offseason, or another big move at the trade deadline, or another big future move if the Kings still feel they're one big swing or one big piece away from truly contending. But let's talk about DeMar DeRozan as a Sacramento King. What does that look like? I briefly talked about this a couple of days ago when we first heard the rumors of the Kings could be interested in DeMar. Since that time, it's gone from the Kings should be interested or could be interested to now the Kings are the front runner and are in negotiations with Chicago as we speak. I think DeMar DeRozan would be a fantastic pickup for the Kings. The Kings really only have one mid-range scoring threat on their roster. It's De'Aaron Fox. Right? They have one guy that can efficiently go to a mid-range shot and hit it a good portion of the time. The mid-range jumper, we saw less of it from Fox this season. 2 seasons ago, that pull-up elbow jumper was the bread and butter for De'Aaron Fox, especially down the stretch in crunch time, because he was too quick to stay in front of on the perimeter, and teams tried to make sure to meet him at the rim, but he'd pull up for that jumper before the big man could get into place. It was his bread and butter. Nobody else on this team, as it stands, really has that jump shot in their bag. Now, the mid-range jumper is considered to be the worst shot or one of the least efficient shots in basketball, because if you're going to shoot, why not try and go for 3 points instead of 2? But if you're going to score a 2-pointer, why not try and finish around the rim? It all counts the same from next to the rim to just inside the 3-point line. It all counts the same. So the mid-range jumper, not the most efficient shot, or at least that's how people looked at it and talked about it 4 or 5 years ago. Meanwhile, DeMar DeRozan has been a mid-range merchant his entire career. He has a game very similar to that of Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. Now, Understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying DeRozan is as good a player as Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan was, but both of those guys thrived in the mid-range. Kobe Bryant had his mid-range turnaround jumper that was basically unguardable. Michael Jordan hit game winner after game winner, big shot after big shot in his career with that mid-range jumper. So having more guys that can not only knock down that shot, but having another guy that can create and get that shot on his own. DeMar DeRozan would be the third playmaking, get your own shot option that Sacramento has on offense. And maybe Keegan Murray will become that fourth or a fourth option consistently this season. But DeMar DeRozan 100% gives Sacramento another guy that can just, in a big moment, can go and get them a bucket. He's also a guy that gets to the line at will and is a dominant free throw threat. But look, we're talking about efficiency. DeMar DeRozan, these stats provided by Will Z Stats Online. He did a pretty deep dive into DeRozan in Sacramento, so I'm stealing some of these. DeRozan shot 64.8, so basically 65% from the restricted area, which is that little circle underneath the basket. He is a 51.4% shooter in the paint, but outside of the restricted area. He's a 43% mid-range scorer. And even the three-point shot, that is his weakest part of his offensive game. Last season, he shot 39% on corner threes. So there is a spot on the floor outside of the paint, outside of the mid-range, where he can be an efficient shooter in a way that keeps him out of the way of a Sabonis or a De'Aaron Fox or a Malik Monk or somebody else on offense who's trying to attack the basket. I've seen some people, and people have responded to me on social media as I've talked more and more about DeRozan being a target for the Kings and why I like it. A lot of people said, oh, he clogs the paint. He doesn't make sense. He's going to take away from the efficiency of the offense. I completely disagree. DeRozan has made a career out of being a top guy on very, very successful teams and very successful offenses while not being a significant three-point threat. Are there going to be times where teams feel comfortable leaving DeRozan on the perimeter, leaving DeRozan on the wing or straightaway three to double team Fox? Yes. And more often than not, teams are probably going to be able to get away with that on a possession-by-possession basis. But DeRozan more than makes up for that, in my opinion, both as a mid-range go-to scorer that takes some of that pressure off of De'Aaron or off of Malik or even off of a Sabonis when the Kings need a big bucket down the stretch or someone just to slow things down or get to the rim or get to the foul line to stop the bleeding or get things back under control. DeRozan absolutely can be that guy. And on top of that, he's a veteran that knows how to win in this league. He knows what it takes to be a very successful playoff team. He brings leadership. He brings a high basketball IQ. On the defensive end, his defense isn't phenomenal. It's not fantastic. He's never really been known for his defense, but he's solid in terms of averages over a deflection a game. He's a smart basketball player, and I don't think he's going to be a player that hurts you by any means on the defensive end. Is he a lockdown defensive player that maybe the Sacramento Kings should be or could be looking for to bolster this roster? No. But he more than makes up for it on the offensive end. I think he's a kind of a nice blending of Monty still looking to help this team get back to where they were offensively, and Mike looking for players that can be efficient on both ends that aren't a defensive liability while being an offensive boon, if that makes sense. I love the idea of DeMar DeRozan in Sacramento, especially, of course, if the Kings can get him in this scenario without giving up too much. I've been saying, and I even said as early as yesterday, that I think Kyle Kuzma is the best overall route and option and an improvement for the Sacramento Kings to make. Doesn't mean that he's a better player than Lauri Markkanen or Brandon Ingram, but that all things considered, his contract, his position, his age, his skill set, all things considered, he was the best route for the Kings to take. A large part of me still believes that, but it's being threatened by DeMar DeRozan. So we'll compare DeRozan to Kuzma and which route the Kings should take and my gut feeling on which route I think the Kings would prefer. We'll address all that here in the next segment. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by GameTime. This is the app or the site or whatever you want to call it. This is the place for you to get your tickets from now on for whatever event you're going to, whether it's a sporting event, a future Sacramento Kings game, an NFL game, an MLB game this summer. Maybe it's a local theatrical production. Maybe it's a concert, whether it's at a massive venue like a stadium, Levi Stadium in Santa Clara to go see Taylor Swift, or if it's just a small event at like Ace of Spades in Sacramento. Whatever the case may be, a theatrical production, a comedy show, it does not matter. GameTime has all of those tickets for you, and they have the best deals that you're going to find. And the closer you get to the event, the better the deals are and the more the savings are. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets. Plus, they have flash deals where you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of games or events. They have all-in pricing. This is a feature that you need to toggle and have on because it removes all of the guesswork and all of the surprises out of purchasing tickets. How many times have you gone on to, let's say, buy tickets before a Kings game, and it says $65 a seat? Okay, great. I'm going to spend $130 plus some minor fees to get in to go see the Kings play the Atlanta Hawks on a Saturday night. All right, whatever. Then you get to checkout, and it turns out it's going to be like $165, $170 because of all these service fees and processing fees and all this stuff that now makes it a little less worth it, or now you're feeling a little less good about buying those tickets. You're not going to get ambushed by those on GameTime. It'll show you exactly what the price of the seat is up front. You know what you're paying from the moment you select your seat. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee on GameTime. They'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price in a similar selection or section or seat. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets now. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. A lot of the conversation I've seen today around the possibility of the Kings getting DeMar DeRozan has people excited, not just because of DeMar's history, but because of the idea that the Kings could, in theory, go out and get both DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Kuzma. It is possible. So why am I going to spend this segment comparing one to the other and putting one against the other? In my opinion, with the Sacramento Kings struggling as much as they are to find one right deal and how much they've struggled over the last couple of years, I think we're getting a little overzealous to think the Kings would go for both and truly go all in right now to get both players. Now, I understand completely if the Kings were to be able to go out and get DeRozan and Kuzma, we're looking at a starting lineup of Fox, DeRozan, Murray, Kuzma, Sabonis, with Monk and Carter and Trey Lyles coming off the bench. Yeah, that's a lineup to be excited about, for sure. I think that's a little more into the realm of NBA 2K than it is real life. Just my feeling on the situation. I feel like it's one or the other, because what both of these deals have in common is they give you the flexibility to make another move down the road when something else becomes available, or when the Kings are in the position that the I don't know, what's a team? The Denver Nuggets, for example. The Denver Nuggets were an established playoff team, right? They still needed another piece to actually get into championship contention. They go out. And they add Aaron Gordon. They end up winning a title. I think the Kings would rather make a improvement this offseason that they need to make and still have the flexibility going forward to make one more big swing if they need to down the road than use the majority of what they have now to add two players that probably puts them firmly in the playoff conversation in the West, but there's still question marks about their ability to actually win a title. So to me, it's a Kuzma versus DeRozan thing, not a Kuzma and DeRozan thing. Although, yes, it is technically possible. DeMar DeRozan is more of a proven winner, and he's more of a veteran in this league. So if you're looking for someone who brings that leadership aspect, and somebody who, I know one of the concerns of the Kings going out and getting Kyle Kuzma is that he's been a good player on primarily bad teams his entire career. So DeRozan has been a really, really solid player on some really good teams and some so-so teams, but been consistently great to an all-star throughout his career. So if you're looking for the better player, even though he's older, DeMar DeRozan is that guy. However, Kuzma has a significant edge with his contract and the position he plays / how big he is. He's bigger than DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is 6'6". Kyle Kuzma is 6'9". Kyle Kuzma is a 4, more of a wing forward. DeMar DeRozan is going to be split between kind of the shooting guard and small forward positions, which I'll talk about that here in just a second. Like Kuzma, if you go out and get Kuzma, you feel pretty confident if you don't move Harrison Barnes in the deal, moving Harrison to the second unit and having Kuzma start at the 4 with Keegan sliding to the 3. With DeRozan, if you, let's say you get DeRozan while moving Kevin Huerter, I think the more likely scenario is DeMar DeRozan is your starting 2. Keon Ellis moves back to the bench. You have Harrison Barnes still starting at the 4 with Keegan at the 3. Or sorry, Harrison would start at the 3 with Keegan at the 4, and you go forward there, which is not a bad move by any means for Sacramento to make. But if you're looking for truly size at the power forward position, Kuzma is the better option. And the contract speaks for itself, right? You're talking about DeMar being paid $20+ million a year for the next 3 to 4 years. Kuzma, his contract is really, really good. It goes down by a couple $1 million every single year, making it easier to move on from. And more importantly, you can add more financially on top of Kuzma going forward. It gives you the flexibility for that, the potential De'Aaron Fox max extension and the upcoming Keegan Murray, probably max rookie scale extension coming in a couple of years. So there's more flexibility in a lot of ways with Kuzma compared to DeRozan, at least financially. Kuzma is slightly the better perimeter scoring option. So offensively, in terms of spacing the floor and getting out of the way of Fox and Sabonis, Kuzma's probably better there. Both players shot 33% from three-point range last season. However, Kuzma's was on a significantly higher volume, 6 to 7 threes a game versus DeRozan's like 2 threes a game. And for their career, Kuzma's a 33% three-point shooter. DeRozan is a 29%. So Kuzma more known as a three-point scorer compared to DeMar, but it's not so much better that it gives him an unbelievable edge. On top of that, defensively, it's probably close to a push with a slight edge to Kuzma because of his size, and I think just at this point, I think the Kings could probably get more defensively out of Kuzma, and Mike Brown could get more defensively out of Kuzma than they could out of DeMar DeRozan, but DeRozan is definitely the smarter player. The flexibility asset-wise is the big thing with both of these deals for the Kings to be excited about. However, if you're talking about acquiring these players, the Wizards are still asking for two first-round picks for Kyle. I think that the Kings will be able to get him for like 1 first-round pick and a pick swap. I truly think they'll be able to get there. That being said, if it is 2 first-rounders, and the difference is between the Kings getting nothing and getting Kyle Kuzma for 1 extra first-round pick, I said this on social media and I'll say it here, I think I'm okay with the Kings giving up the 2nd first-round pick. But if you're weighing Kuzma versus DeRozan, you could potentially get DeMar without giving up a first-round pick, period. In this sign and trade, in theory, you'd be giving up, again, Kevin Huerter and likely a couple second-rounders. So there's a big star or a big tally in the column of DeRozan over Kuzma. To me, if there's a gut feeling of who the Sacramento Kings would prefer, if you asked, you had the Kings schoolyard style on the playground and they could choose DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Kuzma with everything they bring to the table. Kuzma's financial flexibility and his size, DeRozan's veteran leadership, does cost more money, but more of a solid scoring veteran option and a go-to scoring option. I think the Kings prefer DeRozan. even though they do need depth and size, and that's something we've talked about a lot, of the 6'9", or 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" variety, DeRozan is so skilled in one area as that mid-range go-to scorer. Opens up so many options there, plus the veteran presence that he brings, and the fact that I think for Mike Brown, you can be content with adding someone who is primarily an offensive player, but defensively gives you enough on the other end, or can work well enough on the other end to where he's not any kind of liability, and you can overall, DeRozan is more of a net positive than he is a net negative because of how much he gives you and how efficient he is on the offensive end, to where if he does have any defensive inefficiencies, it doesn't overwhelm what he does on the offensive end. Right now, gut feeling would say if the Kings had to choose between the two, they would choose DeRozan. Most of it has to do with who DeRozan is as a player, and a lot of it would also have to do with the fact that they could potentially and likely get DeRozan without having to give up future draft picks. Now, they would be paying more for DeMar than they would be paying for Kyle, but more draft picks, more assets on top of that, again, still leaves the door open for a bigger move down the road. Final thing before we move on to the California Classic and Kings practice before the Cali Classic today, let me know what you're feeling. Are you team DeMar? Are you team Kyle Kuzma? Are you team go out and get both of them? Are you team neither and you still want Lauri Markkanen or Brandon Ingram or another name that we haven't discussed today? Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack. Email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Or, of course, leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. The California Classic starts tomorrow. We'll have Kings basketball inside the Golden One Center tomorrow. We'll also have Kings basketball inside the Chase Center tomorrow. Yeah, we're going to have 4 Kings games over the next 2 days. Of course, the Kings team in Sacramento is by far the team to pay more attention to. But that doesn't mean that we can't also enjoy some other Kings basketball happening on in the Chase Center with that. It's not a B team, but we kind of know it's a Kings B team over there. Today, inside the Golden One Center practice facility, the Kings practice facility, we got to witness the first California Classic practice. And we also got the opportunity to speak with Keon Ellis, Colby Jones, and the head coach of the Sacramento-based California Classic team, and I think the overall head coach of all of Summer League, Doug Christie. So I'm going to play for you some audio from their media sessions. We'll start with Keon Ellis. Keon Ellis talks about his role as part of the Cali Classic team, his expectations to play in the California Classic. I was a little confused. I don't know about you. I was confused and a little surprised to see Keon Ellis playing, but apparently he expected it all along. And he even talks about the addition of Devin Carter to this team. Take a listen.
Honestly, I'm same mission, just trying to go out there and win. Obviously, I know I probably had the ball a little more, expected to do more things, but at the end of the day, still just trying to go out there and win, help others look good, make myself look good. Yeah, that's it. I definitely want to say it's a surprise. I kind of always go into any situation just expecting to do, whatever. So kind of like going into the summer, I was going with the mindset of I'll probably play in the California Classic, and now I'm playing. So I kind of had that thought process the whole time. So, it was just on track for me. The whole summer we were training, knowing that I'd probably play in it. So just work on things even for real games, whenever the ball gets to me and, it's time to create or do whatever, just for situations like that as well. But I think now is a time to go out and show it in, long stretches throughout the game. So.
And what do you make of just the addition of Devin Carter overall?
I think it'll be a good addition for us. You can't go wrong with more defense. So, I haven't, seen him play, but I've heard he's really good on the defensive end. So, I think he'll definitely be a good contribution to the team for sure.
Like I talked to you about last episode of Locked On Kings, when he found out about the California Classic rosters and Keon Ellis being on it, this is a real breakout opportunity for Keon. You are playing starting caliber minutes in technically postseason basketball, the play-in tournament. He had a great season for Sacramento. He's going to be fighting to prove that he belongs in that starting 2 spot beyond just a breakout season. A great way to do that is to play, to put it bluntly, against lesser competition in the Summer League and dominate. and showcase that you are an NBA caliber player. So that's what I'm expecting from Keon here, and I hope he makes the most of that opportunity in the Cali Classic this weekend. Then there's Colby Jones, who spent a full year as part of the Sacramento Kings last season, didn't really play unless it was garbage time, but spent the whole year in practice, spent the whole year learning, and he talked about what he's been working on and what he's hoping to showcase in Summer League, as well as a little bit about Devin Carter, too.
I would say last year was just a lot of unknown. Coming into Summer League, didn't know really anything, really. So this year, I feel like I have a good understanding of what's happening, what's going to happen. So just having that, being comfortable with that, I feel like it'll be a lot easier for me this year.
Do you feel much different?
Yeah, I feel completely just more confident in my game. Physically and mentally, I feel like I've been doing a lot of things to prepare myself. Just my progression as a player, things that the coaching staffs wanted me to try to improve on, so hopefully I can show those. And just want to go out there and win, obviously. With the group that we have, I feel like we should go out there and rack up some wins, so looking forward to that. Just consistency in my three-point shot, whether that's taking those and making those, and then on the defensive side, being able to get a stop. And all the time, I feel like my cardio is kind of part of that on defense, so I feel like those two kind of play a part. I feel like those two are a main big focus for me, and I feel like I've been working on those a lot. And playing last year, just having 1 year, most guys coming into Summer League haven't played at all, so just being a leader for the guys, just being a voice for the guys, just trying to take this role for Summer League and hopefully can translate it with the Kings.
Your thoughts on drafting Devin Carter, 13th overall, the guard that you'll be competing against probably in response? I mean, it's in a roster spot possibly as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's a great pick for us. He's a great player. Obviously, I had the chance to play against him when I was in college a couple times, so it was good having a familiar face coming in. I know what he's going to come in and do, so I feel like he's a great addition to the program.
Finally, Doug Christie, the head coach of the Summer League squad, getting a big opportunity for him. He talks about his opportunity to coach the Cali Classic team and how that helps with his development. He also talks about his roster, the opportunity for the Kings veteran players like Keon and Colby, and has some great things to say about Devin Carter, too.
I mean, just like every opportunity, I always feel blessed. It's super exciting. I mean, the fact that, Coach Brown, the Kings trust me with the ability to continue to grow is big time. So I appreciate it, and you guys know how I attack stuff, so I just try to put everything I have into it and teach them as much as we can in the days that we have, so we put together a product always that the Kings fans can be proud of. I think that we have a little bit of everything, and that's always exciting because the way that we play with the big club, the way that we play with Stockton, and the way that we play ultimately with the Summer League. The ability, we got Kobe, we got Mason, we got Keon, we got two ways as well, like looking at Isaac, looking at Isaiah. These guys, they've come in and they've done some really good stuff. So, I'm excited to watch them work and then see them succeed. This is a different animal for them. In the season, they are who they are. To his point, they are who they are for the Kings. Now you come to Summer League and it's a chance for you to expand your game a little bit. Now, how do you do that? Do you do it in leadership? Do you do it in scoring? Do you do it in even more defense? And it's hard to say because I think that as I'm watching them, I'm seeing a little bit of all of it, but really it's the games that matter and then the work that they put in off the floor. So that'll be one of those questions I think I'd be able to better answer at the end as we watch them progress. My son and Devin were friends. I've seen him for a long time with his dad, Anthony, so super excited and proud to watch what they've done as a family. I hope that and I believe that he will be in Vegas, and he's been here every day, so he has the ability to see it, to sit down and talk with him and just kind of see where he's at and what he's doing. But great kid. I'm super excited. I can't wait to get him on the court.
I'm looking forward to being out at the California Classic inside the Golden One Center tomorrow. If you're going to any of the games, hit me up. Let me know. Would love to see you there and chat with you more. Of course, if anything happens with this DeMar DeRozan stuff over the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll be right on top of it here on the Locked On Kings podcast. And I think there's a very good chance that by the end of it, DeMar DeRozan is a Sacramento King. But I feel most confident about these rumors than any other rumors before it. Let's just say that. I feel more confident about the Kings actually going out and getting DeMar DeRozan than I did at all about Lauri Markkanen or Brandon Ingram. I'm still pretty confident that Kyle Kuzma is in the Kings' back pocket too as a fallback plan if they want to go that route. But DeMar DeRozan makes a ton of sense, and I believe wholeheartedly that the Kings will be working hard to try and get this deal done. So, of course, if it happens or if it doesn't happen, we'll cover it and discuss it right here on Locked On Kings. Can't wait to see you at the California Classic. I'll have a podcast tomorrow. Malik Monk is supposed to speak with the media tomorrow morning, so we'll hear from Malik Monk as well. It's going to be a busy day in Sacramento Kings basketball, and I'll have a jam-packed Locked On Kings podcast for you tomorrow. Can't wait to chat with you then. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.